All right, sweet. Pat Gierke, dude, you are a rock star in the financial services world. You are a good friend of mine, and I don't say that about every financial professional, just so you know.
I appreciate that.
But nobody's born, you're not 5 years old running around going, God, I can't wait to be a financial guy, insurance agent. What the hell happened? How did you get into this business?
That's interesting. When I was younger, I had an uncle who was an investor, was into stock trading, got me invested or interested. I started buying and selling some stocks.
This is back when you can do it online. You're using a broker.
Correct.
Here's $100. Go make a trade for me.
Correct.
Yeah.
Making
Commission
the
was
phone calls.
$50 a trade.
It was. You're absolutely right. Yeah. And funny, I was looking for a job actually. I was 24 years old, and I saw an ad. So I answered an ad in the paper.
The penny saver?
I don't remember what it was.
The Tribune, something.
And it was with Prudential. And that's who I had used, was a Prudential Beige back in the day. And so I thought I was getting involved in stockbroker kind of job. And I went in and they sold me on the fact that the complete planning picture of the insurance, I wasn't looking to go down that lane at all. And made sense. They sold me.
Yeah.
They sold me on it. I said, hey, let's do the complete planning picture of the insurance, the protection, as well as the investing.
But kind of stumbled, into it. Like that's my
did.
story, and mine was the penny saver, and it was. I saw an ad that said work 4 days a week, make $1,000, and I was 19. I'm like, or 18. That sounds fucking awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So I go interview. They made me wait 24 hours, and then they said, you got the job. But it turns out, if you could fog a mirror, you got the job, right? I mean, it was commission only, so they didn't give a shit.
Right.
And it turned out to be health insurance sales, knocking door to door back in the day. Mm-hmm. And I always say I'm kind of glad I didn't know what I was getting into, because I probably would not have.
I'd agree with you.
I mean, it wasn't easy, right? When you start, it's not easy.
It's not at all.
You're young. You're trying to convince people to trust you with their plan.
Well, it was real tough. I mean, being young, 24 when I walked in the door, I understood why people weren't necessarily looking at me and saying, oh, this guy really knows what he's talking about.
Yeah. Well, I mean, your average client in the financial services industry, even when you're 24, is probably mid-40s, 50s, maybe even 60s.
Absolutely.
And now looking back, I wonder, if I wasn't in this industry, would I sit down at a table with a 24-year-old and have them tell me what to do with my money? That takes some cojones, brother. I mean, you got to walk into that situation with some confidence, right?
Yeah, well, and I'll tell you, in the beginning, it wasn't there necessarily. I knew, don't ask me the tough questions. Don't ask me the tough questions. I'm still trying to figure this out. I mean, I was inexperienced.
What do you say to somebody that wants to be a Pat Gierke and they're just starting out? How did you overcome that? Is it just sheer volume of appointments that you grinded it hard enough, or what was it that allowed that to subside?
Yeah, that's a great question. I sometimes tell people I think there was a little bit of luck involved with the timing, because I knew a lot of people that focused on the education, and they were really good. They could tell you everything you needed to know about everything, but they didn't have any experience going out and talking to people.
Yeah.
Everything worked in the training room.
Yeah.
It's when you're sitting across the table from somebody, suddenly you get objections that we didn't talk about in the training room.
It's off script.
Off script,
Yeah.
exactly. And then on the other hand, if you're just going out and seeing people, but you don't know what you're talking about, that shows through too. So you're going to struggle a little bit. Now you'll learn as you go. But I think in some respects I struck a nice balance. Maybe you right place, right time in some cases.
Yeah.
But
Trump says the harder I work, the luckier I get,
yes,
right?
Yes. And I think that was something that was embedded in us. You're going to go out and see at least 15 people a week. That was the goal. I didn't always make that goal, but yeah, just keeping busy, grinding it out, a lot of disappointment. I think it was about 6 months in where suddenly light bulb went off in my head that I think the confidence level bumped up a bit, because it hit me that I didn't know everything, but at the same time, now I knew more.
And it's okay to not know everything. I mean, you
is.
have to come to this comfort. I mean, even today, you have to have this comfort level of, I may not know that answer, but I'm okay not knowing that answer, because I have other people that might know that answer.
Exactly.
Right?
And the fact is, you do know a lot. You start realizing, oh, I am starting to build a base of knowledge here. I'm starting to understand this. And I'm going back then. But now I can answer enough questions that I'm not too intimidated by the couple that come up.
Yeah.
that I
Well,
don't
you're
know
also not
correct.
under pressure. Like when we started, or when I started at least, you got to pay the bills. And there's a pressure almost on every appointment. Like, yeah, I want to be altruistic. I want to help this person. But at the end of the day, if I don't walk out of here with an application, you know, I'm not paying my credit card off.
You're right.
Right? And that's gone now.
That is.
So the motivation is different. And I think success then compounds because now you're not stressed. You can sit in an appointment and go, you know, clearly I'd love to have this person as a client, but if it doesn't work out, if it's not what's in their best interest or my best interest, I'm okay.
Well, when you need it that bad, you press. And I think that
People feel that.
people do.
Yeah.
They do. And I think they want to know you have their best interests at heart. And if I'm pressing and it's coming across that I'm doing this for me, not for you,
Yeah.
I think you're right. So once you reach that point where you are just sincere and you're listening and you're there to help, yeah, that does come through. People understand. You're asking the questions, you're listening.
And that's time, that's maturity, that's knowledge. Well, what's the first step? Like, I want to be Pat Gierke, but I am 24. You had a combination of knowledge, grind, and you said luck, timing maybe.
Sure.
Well, if I'm looking at it and I'm 24, I'm going, well, I may not have all of those three things, but what's the first thing what do I have to do? What's step one? Like, if I want to get into this business and be successful, what's the first thing I got to do?
Well, I think you have to be prepared for some disappointment, that it's not all going to come easy. I worked with a lot
You
of
just
people.
pissed off a lot of millennials.
I do that pretty regularly.
Attaboy. So keep going, prepared.
Yeah, I mean, I worked with a lot of people when I started that took off from the gates quick. I didn't. I did grind it out. I was envious. What's wrong with me? You know, what's going on here? But the minute they hit any struggles, they were done. They were done with the business. And, I think in some respects, the fact that I didn't have a fast start helped me out quite a bit. It made me look in all areas. I'll kind of back up a little bit. When you come into the business, a lot of the firms will talk about who's your network of people. You know, deal
Right.
with your friends and your family.
Top 100, write the
You-
list.
You got it, yeah. And I don't know, I was so afraid of my friends and family running away from me at every family gathering or every party we had because they thought I was just going to come up and start pushing them to buy something.
Yeah.
Pitching, yeah. So I went extreme to the other direction. I never talked about it. I didn't want them to think that I'm always selling. That helped me out. Actually, now when I look back, they're all great clients of mine now. But I think that helped me, that I had to grind and learn how to find clients all over the place. And I didn't lean on that, the friends and the family.
Yeah.
And I think maybe that was part of the reason I saw some of these people have these quick starts.
They're sprinted, and then they ran out of gas.
Yeah,
and
once
you marathoned it.
Once they didn't have that core to talk to, if it wasn't large enough, they didn't know where to turn.
And that core will run. Like, if I meet somebody that I'm pretty sure I don't want to engage in a conversation and they ask what I do, I say I sell life insurance. Because they run. I mean, nobody wants to talk to a life insurance salesman, right?
That would do it.
Yeah. So there's no blue pill. There's no red pill. This is an insane. The insurance and financial services industry has an insanely, almost criminally low bar for entry, right? I mean, if you got $100 and a week's worth of time, you could go get a license.
Well, funny story. When I first started, there was an old timer in the office, and I love the line. We were talking in a group, and he said, for anybody who thinks they're really talented here, they're special, they can't be replaced. He said, you just remember when you walk out the door, there's an ad in the paper saying no experience needed.
Right. And then you're a financial advisor.
Yes.
Which is scary as hell. But I think the bottom line is there's no magic. You have to grind it. You have to accept disappointment, you've said. Be prepared for that disappointment. You probably can't take things too serious. You can't take yourself too seriously. I mean, if you're one that can't deal with criticism, you know, he was talking about 15 appointments a week. My number, I was always, it's funny that I still remember this because this is when I was 19, so I'll date myself. It's 24 fucking years ago. But I remember my mentor saying, this is the formula for success. 10, 3, 1. You have to see 10 people. You have to call 10 people. You'll get 3 appointments, and out of those 3 appointments, you'll get 1 sale. And it still works like that.
It does.
You know, 10, 3, 1. But that's the formula, and you have to pay homage to that formula. You can't just, I'm a financial advisor now, let's go. It's so saturated. It's like an ocean, right? I mean, there's too many guys that are trying to be you already. How do you set yourself apart now? I mean, you have more knowledge than most of the folks in the industry, but how do you set yourself apart?
I think one of the things that I pride myself on, and this probably started after a year or two in the business, is we talk about relationship businesses, right? But it really is. I mean, it's more than just a term, relationship business. I would always go in, kind of going back, probably lacking the confidence. I was always afraid and so focused on business. I didn't want to say the wrong thing. I didn't want to not have the answer. And it was just very, maybe more sterile, I guess.
Yeah.
I'd go in there, I'd be about business, and you need to do that. You want to look professional. But when I started dropping the guard and saying it was okay to be friends with my clients, get to know, do you talk to them about their kids, you know, the family, what's going on? I don't know, their walls come down. But it was just getting to know them on a level where we could joke and talk about things other than the business.
Be authentic. They want to know Pat.
Yes.
Right?
And
not Pat the salesman. They want to know Pat the dude.
yes, I think so.
Yeah.
You know, it's, you know, just conversations. Who knows what you're talking about? You're talking about whiskey. You know, you're talking about a trip that you took. You're talking about music that you like. Now it's not rigid. There, you know, well, because I guess a lot of people I like to talk to, you realize they don't want to talk to you because they're intimidated. They don't want to embarrass themselves about what they haven't done or what they don't know.
Yeah.
So if you can drop that guard and just have a normal conversation, I think it just opens things up.
Yeah. And it's made you successful. I mean, I don't know your personal finances, but I'm fairly certain you're financially free at this point. You don't have to keep doing what you're doing. So initially, the motivation maybe is finances or I got to have a career, right? It certainly was for me. But now what's the motivation? I mean, you don't have to keep going. So what's the motivation now?
I'll tell you, I love what I do. It's I say quite often to my clients, I sometimes feel guilty calling this work. I'm going out and meeting with friends.
You're living retirement right now. I mean, what are you going to do in retirement? Things you like to do.
Exactly
You're doing
right.
it.
So just, again, I look at my appointments for the day. I'm kind of excited. Haven't seen them in a bit. Let's get together. It'll be good to catch up. And we might be talking, and 90% of it has nothing to do with business.
Yeah.
And then we just kind of, okay, let's.
It's amazing how business flows from those conversations, though. And
It is.
you turn out that it turns out there's more assets you didn't know about, or there's this, or there's an uncle, and you just start those conversations and it's because you're just being you.
I think so.
Could you have nailed that when you were 24?
No.
You can't tell someone something right now that they don't have to spend 10 years, 20 years trying to get there. I think that's the right answer. I mean, I can't think of anything to tell a 24-year-old that would allow them to go, hey, all I have to do is just be me, be personable, and let's talk. And I'll contribute even at 24, whatever knowledge I have, because the general population has a gross lack of financial knowledge. Just in general, I mean, right? Like strangely enough, if you spend a week studying something in insurance or finances, you probably know more than most of the population, right?
Yes.
But how do you convey that to someone that is just starting out? And just be yourself, just be authentic.
Yeah.
Are you afraid that your authentic self is not enough to close the deal?
Now?
Well, no. I'm just saying. I know it is now. I mean, I'm sitting here with you. I wouldn't be sitting here with you otherwise.
Right.
Yeah, your authentic self. But what I'm saying is you've unlocked that after a few decades, right?
Right.
I mean, I know you're only 24 still, but but how do you unlock that at 24, or can you?
I think it is truly experience. It was getting that comfort of talking to people.
Just repeating over and over
Yeah.
what you're doing.
And even life experiences. I didn't have as many life experiences to share at 24 as I do now.
Yeah.
But, as I'm saying that out loud, you still have experiences. Just, when I started, being young, what was really surprising to a lot of my colleagues is for whatever reason, it was, say this the right way, retired women, grandmas,
Yes.
that seemed to love me. I reminded them of their grandson. And nobody would have thought that would have been my market.
Right. No.
But that actually, so again,
And you embraced it?
I did embrace it, yeah. I had nothing else to embrace.
I'm embracing Granny.
That's right.
Well done, you pervert.
So I guess, what I'm saying that is now I know I have a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
A lot of life experience to talk about. But back then, there is something. I think it is just engaging with people. And maybe I guess what I'm saying, too, is not to be so uptight, so rigid.
Yes.
Let it be a natural conversation with people that's not just, okay, let's all get down to business here.
Well, and it's a progression, right? So, like, I've totally relate to what you're saying. When you start off and you're meeting with clients and you don't realize you know more than them, right? But even later on in business, you develop this knowledge. Then all of a sudden you're meeting with high net worth clients and you're meeting with their attorneys and their accountants. And there's that nervousness all over again. Like, well, what if I can't answer the accountant's question or because they're an attorney? What if I can't answer theirs question? I went through that too. Like that was a second cycle for me. Like I got to the point where I pretty much, like you said, I could probably answer about any question they're going to throw at me, a client. Mm-hmm. And then I found myself working with higher net worth clients and on the phone with attorneys, and that same nervousness came back, even though I've been in the business for 10 years at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember going back years ago working on a case. Another colleague had asked me to go meet with these people, and it was a husband and wife, and we rolled over a decent amount of money. And the wife didn't really want to sit at the table. The husband wanted her to, but she was just looking around. She didn't want anything to do with it. And I said, when we first set this up, let's get together quarterly just to get some familiarity. We'll go over those statements. I think repetition's a good thing. Let's sit down and become familiar with the account. The better you understand it, the more you'll appreciate it. Well, I made the call. We got together at one quarter. Second quarter comes around, and I call up the wife, and husband had passed away. And okay, I wasn't sure she wanted to get together. She was really not engaged in our conversations. So we got together. She was talking about moving the account. Her sister said, here, work with my advisor. And so we sat together with the daughter. Things went relatively well. Okay, we're not necessarily moving it, but we're going back and forth with this other advisor. And I had another colleague. They wanted me to come into their office, the other advisory firm, and meet as a group to kind of compete
right into
with
the
each
lion's
other.
den.
Yeah, and I thought, well, I'm not going into your office because they might bring 6 people out around the table, and I don't stand a chance here as I'm getting bombarded all over. I said, but why don't we I'll call in. We can do a conference call, and we'll talk together. And I had all my other colleagues going, you're crazy. Why are you getting engaged at that? You're going to be eaten up. You're going to be eaten up. I'm like, what? Why not?
What's the worst that could happen?
If I don't make this call, it shows weakness.
Totally.
Why wouldn't you go with the other firm? So we got on the call, sat in the conference room, making the call, just talked for about 20 minutes, half hour, and it was one of those moments. Everything she was throwing at me, I was firing back, going back. 10 minutes after that, the mother's on the phone with me and said, boy, she was impressed with you. She was really impressed. But I walked into that meeting.
With the little nerves.
Oh, for sure.
Even to this, because this is recent. I remember this story. This is within the last couple of years.
No, this goes back a little bit.
Oh, does it?
More than that. Yeah,
okay.
I may have had others since. I mean,
got it. Yeah.
You get enough of those.
But you've been in the business for quite some time at that point.
Yes.
And you still sweaty palms. Yeah.
Oh, sure.
100%.
Sure. It's that unknown. I figure they're coming after me. I mean, I'm just assuming that they're going to try and make me look like I don't know what I'm doing because they want the business too. And but
isn't that crazy? It's never as bad as you think it's going to be. It's also sometimes never as good as you think it's going to be, right? It usually ends up somewhere down the middle.
It does.
What is a successful day now? So, like, is there something that you have to do every day? Do you have a routine? Is it a set number of appointments? Is there anything that by the end of the day you go, this was a successful day? that you either do or don't do?
Yeah. I probably could use some more structure. I mean, I'm at that stage where, yeah, I don't want to say I wing it. That's not the best way to put it. But, you know, how do I put this? I just know I need to do things in a day. You know, I don't have them written out and I don't have them formatted. But I have a, legal pad I always have. I'm writing notes on clients I need to contact. There's obviously things that you have an itinerary.
For those that are listening, a legal pad is a set of papers that you write on.
Correct.
It used to be popular back in the day.
I actually get, some of my clients make fun of me too when I bring out the paper and I start writing on it too. Yeah. Old school.
So it's nothing there's nothing specific. Has it always been that way for you, or were you more structured when you started and you've been able to relax a little bit? Or
I would say I was more structured when I started. And I think, again, clientele is big enough now.
Yeah.
What I do is I do have folders, and on a weekly basis, I've got a list of clients in each folder, and I just try and make sure now on a quarterly basis I'll go through
touching them.
Yeah. I think touching is a big deal.
Yeah.
I had a colleague of mine that we always would talk about the touches. I used to have colleagues that would never leave a voicemail for anybody. I don't know why. They just, felt like unless they got them live, they weren't going to leave a message.
Didn't count as a touch.
Yeah, but I thought, no, it starts, especially with somebody new. I'll leave a couple messages because now if they pick up the phone on the third time or they call me back, they think they know me.
There's some familiarity. Yeah.
The edges have been worn off a little bit.
Yeah. How about regrets? Any regrets? I mean, you have a pretty storied career, so it's almost catch-22 because everything has happened to get you here.
Right.
But could you change if you changed anything?
That's a great question.
What would you change?
I think it probably would have been, I wish that confidence would have come quicker, but I think that adds some humility to me. I remember that those early years were, I'll call them a struggle, sure. It was grinding it out, trying to, build a foundation. So you could say I could have taken off quicker if the confidence were higher, but no, I think there's still, I appreciate that because I think humility is a big deal.
It laid some groundwork for sure.
Yeah. I mean, you talked about some things, are never as tough as they seem, and sometimes they're not as easy as they seem. I don't go in with many expectations, but I guess there's a confidence dragging behind.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking if I just keep doing what I do, just keep being myself, it's going to work out.
Yeah, and it has.
It has.
Clearly.
It has, yeah.
If this is the last thing that Donna or the kids heard, what would you tell them?
Donna or the kids? Wow. Love them to death. I'm a lucky guy. I really am. When you talk about regrets, I look back and say, man, I've got a good life. I'm really happy. It's things go wrong. We talk about disappointments. Things go wrong. I get a gut shot, and again, I'm a colleague. We always use the term gut shots when things don't go right. My gut shots still come. I still get them, and they still hurt. What's gotten much better for me is my recovery time. I used to get a gut shot and maybe be down and out for weeks, sitting there feeling sorry for myself, moaning, groaning. Then, a gut shot comes and I'd be down for a week. Now it's like, okay, just pick up the phone and get going. That really sucked. But, I can get over it. So tying that back in, my daughter is fantastic. I am so proud of her and her drive. My wife is just amazing, supportive as can be with everything. And, the career has turned out very well. I've got a lot of great friends. I'm a lucky guy.
Awesome.
And that's what I want to know.
I'm lucky to know you, Pat. Thank you for coming. Cheers, brother. Let's do it again.
Absolutely.
All right,
Thanks,
right on.
Charles. Appreciate it.
Acrylic Financial Incorporated is a registered investment advisor, and the opinions expressed by those on this show are their own and do not reflect the opinions of Acrylic Financial. All statements and opinions expressed are based upon information considered reliable, although it should not be relied upon as such. Any statements or opinions are subject to change without notice. Information presented is for educational purposes only and does not intend to make an offer or solicitation for the sale or purchase of any specific securities, investments, or investment strategies. Investments involve risk and, unless otherwise stated, are not guaranteed. Information expressed does not take into account your specific situation or objectives and is not intended as recommendations appropriate for any individual. Listeners are encouraged to seek advice from a qualified tax, legal, or investment advisor to determine whether any information presented may be suitable for their specific situation. Past performance is not indicative of future performance, and some guests may have been paid a fee to be interviewed for this show.